Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So today what I'm going to do, I wanted to give an update about my upcoming book. I realized I've never talked about this before because I really don't want to talk about it till till I really start to work on it, right? So I I'm planning to release a new Salesforce a design pattern book that's designing scalable Salesforce application with Apex design pattern. I started working on this book last year, and it's nearly complete. So this is a draft. So I've sent couple of copies to technical architects, people I know, to review, give me the feedback, and just to see if the code works. I mean, though I've included pseudocodes, so it shouldn't matter. Um, and to see, if the content makes sense or the things which I can improve. So yeah, so I probably might be looking to release by July before I head off to Europe for 3 months holiday. So yeah, so I, so what I wanted to do today, I wanted to give you guys a sneak peek to see what's coming, the content that is involved, right? Um, so that's my name. So this is just okay. So just wanted to talk about briefly the stuff I've included. First, I start with Apex, the history of Apex, um, and I just to give you a benefit of doubt to people who never worked with Apex before. Um, I included some of the Apex syntax. This will work if you're someone who's coming from, say, C Sharp background or Java background. This will help. Someone who's looking to migrate into Salesforce space, but they have a programming experience, or for the senior developer. This book is not for someone who's very junior and never worked with code before. But that being said, you're most welcome to read, and you will get some benefit out of it, right? But I do have certain expectation. You need to have certain understanding of the concepts. Okay, um, so I covered a lot of things, right? Talked about different patterns, like talked about singleton, factory, facade, adapter, proxy, observer, strategy, builder pattern, and I even mentioned the case study. Then this is, here I'm briefly talking about it, and then here I'm just mentioning about the syntax and different things that's involved in Apex, like different data types, collections, and kind of stuff, just to give you an idea of what Apex is about, right? Then I talked about the SOCL in Apex because obviously, if you're someone new to Salesforce, you might be thinking, "What the heck is a SOCL?" Right? So I talked briefly about SOCL in Apex. Then I talked about social pattern Apex, when to use and when not to use. Right? Then I explained about object-oriented programming in Apex, like inheritance, polymorphism, abstract class. In I think I've repeated this again, inheritance. So it should be interface. That's fine. This is a draft, right? It's still, I'm still adding content to it. So I already supported a issue. That's fine. Then I included a shopping cart example. Um, then I talked about the best practice for the Apex development, right? I talked about, just to give you an, okay, this is how it looks like. It's just a, tiny liners. Uh, I mean, this book does not contain 100% code. It do contains theory, because I just wanted to make sure I cover things to the point. Otherwise, I would have ended up in writing 500-page book. That's exactly not what I want to do. I wanted to write like 120 or a page book, right? Um, so if I go back, not this one. So yeah, and I spoke about different patterns, individual patterns. So let me give you an example, right? My favorite one is the factor pattern, which is the most easiest one. Okay, so I look at the factor pattern. Okay, and inside the factor pattern, so I give a code example, like a planet example, how that works, and how you can use it, right? And then benefits of factor pattern I talked about, and I give a case study, right? You know, obviously, just knowing about the pattern is not important. It's just not enough. You might be keen to know, hey, give me a case study scenario, right, where I can actually use it. So I talked about, the stuff we do in our company. So that's why I said our company is in process of developing. And I gave a pseudo code how you can do it, right? This is the kind of things I've asked people in an interview question, right? When I was interviewing a couple of guys for my company. So I give a scenario, and that's kind of stuff I've included, right? And if I, there's another thing which I really like about this. I not only talked about patterns, I talked about the writing, um, uh, solid principles. I covered solid principle because you might be using separation of concern or open close principle when you're writing a code. Then Apex design pattern for large scale application. I spoke about batch Apex. I briefly touched about parallel processing. Invocable Apex pattern because obviously you might be using Apex in a flow. So I talked about what invocable Apex is about. I gave a pseudo code, and then how do you handle multiple inputs, right? And then error handling because it's very important, and then tips and consideration, right? So that kind of stuff. Uh, and I even talked about anti-pattern, which is, in my opinion, is important to consider. And uh, and then I briefly touched about a basic trigger pattern, right? Because I've seen people writing trigger in a very horrible way, right? Putting every business logic in it. So you can use different frameworks, but I just mentioned a very simple way you can implement it. If you don't want it to implement, let's say FFlib or RFlib kind of stuff, right? Then so-called design pattern, I spoke about it, right? Where I mentioned about dependency injection, kind of stuff, right? Um, I talked about error handling, out of box error handling, custom exception kind of stuff, right? I mean, I'm gonna add more stuff, but I just wanted to show you. Um, and design pattern for test classes. What's the best strategy to do test class? Should you be using data factory and kind of stuff, right? Solid principle, which is my favorite, anti-parent, and then how to write secure code. I might add more stuff to it, but I just don't want it to spill out more details, right? So this is just a table of content. Uh, you get more stuff uh, when the final book is released, right? So yeah, I'm probably planning to do the Kindle release and hard copy release, whatever that, right? I just have to talk to somebody to get that sorted for me. So yeah, that's the exciting part. That's the thing I've been working on. As you can see, I've been doing a lot of stuff, right? Like I always say, right? I make sure that I value my time, right? I use my time very efficiently. I write journal every single day. That helped me to, um, you know, make proper use of my time, right? And I didn't spend much time, right? I used to write maybe an hour a day. I've been doing this for the past, since last year I started this. So I've been doing an hour a day, except weekends, because except Friday, that's a Shabbat. I don't do anything on that Friday evening. So yeah, and I'm also writing another book on climate change, which is very, like, as you know, I'm very passionate about that, and I'm writing another book on transhumanism. So, which I've started, surprisingly in 2018. Then I lost complete motivation. Then I gave up. I thought I just don't want to look at it for like 2 3 years. So, so yeah, it's a lot of exciting things happening. And then in my company, I've asked Victor and his team to create more uh, practice tests, right? I don't do practice test creation anymore because I have a team based in Poland. They look after it, right? I just tell them the instructions. Hey, can you build this for me? They build it for me, right? I don't have time to build, right? Because as the company grows, right? I used to do everything when I started Inspirate Solution for the first time, like, 2 years ago. Now our company has grown. Now I don't have time to do, tiny little bit of stuff, right? I review the test stuff they do, but it's usually a team that look after it, right? I do YouTube videos, that's right, and I do make course. Uh, but yeah, and yeah. So that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. I hope you guys are excited for this book, and I can tell you that if you are experienced developer, you will really love this book, right? Because I talked about the meaty part of the real Apex developer, right? Which you as a developer should be focusing on, right? And this is very important. If you're a C# developer, if you're a Java developer, you know how much design pattern matters to build a scalable application, right? So that being said, that's all I wanted to cover in today's episode. Hope you guys have an amazing Thursday. Adios.